Well, Charles, I should have prepared something with 100 in it, but that was the spectacular fireworks opening to our Centennial episode.
Well done.
Well, thank you. We've unfortunately had it named by BKD Accounting, so there's a materially misleading and obviously incorrect number in there. It's 101 instead of 100.
And no doubt the corporate colors of BKD are red, white, and black.
Are they?
Mostly red. Red in accounting parlance is
right.
Bad numbers.
Right, of course. Now, I'm not, my accounting parlance is a little shaky, but I'm delighted to have you here with me to make up for any shortcomings there. It's hard to believe, Charles, 100 episodes. There is so much information in each one. I had originally thought we might be able to do like a top 100 pieces of evidence, but we might be here until my 100th birthday if we were to do that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I was happy to organize things the way we have organized them, to give our audience a chance to go over the ground. And mind you, the schedules that I put together and the slides I put together are summaries of very complicated supporting information, as we've seen sometimes when we go into the tax forms or we go into the reports or we go into the legal agreements. There's a tremendous amount of information out there in the public domain, and that's what Herr Schlickmeister and his, in quotes, bride have relied upon in their entire criminal careers together, that most people would not have the patience to check all of these numbers and check these legal agreements, and they say, well, the guy's a Rhodes Scholar and his wife was the smartest woman who ever lived, and they must know what they're doing, even though they both surrendered their law licenses and have never earned an honest penny in their lives. So the way I think you and I agreed in the very beginning that we would do this is we'd look at this big mess, which is really so big that you would have to be flying, I'd say, many miles above the Earth's surface to look at this and say, yeah, I see it all now. It's because so far it hasn't gone farther than the Earth.
Even the 50,000-foot view is not sufficient to encompass the wide reaches of the Clinton Foundation frauds.
And so in the past, when I've tried to dissect complex frauds, for example, General Electric,
yes,
most people, when they looked at General Electric, myself included for many years, assumed that it had been so well covered by the financial press, by regulators, by stock exchanges, by securities firms, by investment sharpies, that for it to retain its AAA rating meant it was the highest rated possible issuer of debt in the world, and it had issued more AAA rated debt, I think, than any other corporate issuer worldwide.
Isn't that so weird that it's not a bank and yet it was doing that?
Right, but you see, this is how the fraudsters work. What happens is there's a there's a small group of very rich investors that is required to only purchase AAA rated debt, the highest rated debt. And what happened since about 1979 is that corporations and governments and individuals around the world said, you know what, we don't really want to be AAA rated. We're not getting, the rules are too tight, and you don't get that much, you don't save that much in interest costs. Why don't we settle for AA or maybe single A? And so the supply of AAA paper became smaller and smaller and smaller, and then people started saying, you know what, this GE, they call it a AAA rated company, but its debt's trading at a much higher interest rate than AAA rate, so it's the best of all possible worlds. We buy the debt, we'll get a higher yield than we should get, and we could tell everybody we're buying safe securities. And not enough people sort of looked at that and said, oh, wait a minute, the markets are pretty good around the world. If the markets are saying this isn't AAA rated, then just because Moody's and S&P put a stamp on it saying it's AAA rated, that doesn't mean it's AAA rated. So anyway, to understand the GE situation in the beginning, I had to go through the same sort of thing that I did here that we did with the Clinton Foundation. You have to pick GE apart, look at it many different ways, begin to understand each little piece of it. And then you say, when you look at piece and you say piece A and you say, is this good or bad? And it comes back, bad. And piece B, bad. Everything's bad.
Yeah.
Suddenly you say, this whole thing is bad.
Right.
And similarly with the Clinton Foundation, you look at this, you hear Schlickmeister talk about everything he's doing, fighting climate change, and fighting AIDS, and convening this session and Health Matters, and
watching dinosaur movies,
and all this stuff. And that's before, no one ever asked Schlickmeister, are you allowed to do any of this stuff? I mean,
right.
But we check the articles of incorporation, we check the rules, we check with the regulators, we check with the experts. We figure out that some of the experts aren't in fact expert. They're fake experts.
Right.
And so when you look at this, now it's over 3.5 years worth, but when you look at this massive paper and you start going public, as I did in, I guess it was March of 2015, with a story that you build upon and build upon and build upon, and Schlickmeister and company don't come back and say, well, we've hired Cravath, Swin & Moore, which is a great law firm, or we've hired a fantastic accounting firm, and let us show you the results of their work. Here are the slides supporting it, here are the exhibits supporting it. It's not a fraud. Here's this legal opinion, that legal opinion, this accounting. Have they done any of that? Of course not, because it is a fraud.
Huh. Well, it's interesting, Charles, the thing, you just said a lot of stuff that I don't understand, but what it clarifies for me is that this is precisely how these frauds are able to be perpetrated, is that most people don't even know how the non-fraudulent version of what you're talking about should work. So therefore, if you're an expert at it, and also you have the ability to control who's in the Department of Justice and the IRS, it becomes easy to do these things. I also do want to clarify that as far as like us doing stuff, this is you doing it and I'm the support staff. Humbly thankful.
No. I mean, the idea of getting this out in video format and the way that you do it so ably, that was your idea. And I'm just I'm a numbers nerd. I mean, you're the visionary who put together Crowdsource the Truth. So
I think we make an excellent team in that regard, because neither of us could do this exactly this way without the other.
That's true. That's true.
Wonderful synergy. And of course, Charles, you've prepared for us a special Centennial 100th episode anniversary slide presentation.
Yes, sir.
And I think, well, actually, there is one thing I wanted to mention before we get into that. I had stated the other day that there was a problem with the super chat function of YouTube, and actually I've realized that was my mistake. It's interesting to note, however, there are certain things that YouTube aggressively contacts you about, and there are certain things that they're just sort of like,
if he doesn't ask for it.
Yeah, if you want this money, you've got to dig into the lowest level functions of it. And I went in there and attached my bank account to it, which, what could possibly go wrong with that? But now it worked. So the money that people have sent with Super Chat, we did receive, and that was great. And that was an experiment that was happening on the 21st Century 3D YouTube channel, which of course is the YouTube channel of my production company that hasn't really been doing too much in terms of 3D lately for the past several years, but it was a good platform to experiment on. And right now I have moved that functionality over to Crowdsource the Truth 2. So I don't know if people are aware of this, but in addition to the original Crowdsource the Truth channel, which can be found on YouTube by searching for Jason Goodman, Crowdsource the Truth 2 is still active and live streams are mirrored on there. And now if people want to support the channel through Super Chat, they're able to do that right here in the live chat on Crowdsource the Truth 2. So thanks to everyone who is joining us on Crowdsource the Truth 2 and on the Jason Goodman channel, and of course on Periscope, on YouTube. There has also, Facebook. There has been a functionality change that Facebook initiated. So videos are no longer going to the Facebook group. They now, unfortunately, must go to the Facebook page. So there's all these complicated technical shenanigans that are going on kind of all the time, Charles, and I don't want to bog you down with that, but I do want to let people know. And of course, really the most important thing that people should know about Super Chat is that Google takes 30% of it. So if people feel they want to use that, they can, but remember, the best value for a sponsorship dollar is to go on to patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, where for as little as $1 per month, people can enjoy exclusive content like the intelligence assessment with Kevin Shipp, reverse engineered crime scene investigations with David Hawkins, and of course, starting Monday, September 3rd, we're going to have a new show, Light on Conspiracies with Ole Damagard. So I'm very excited about that, and people that are sponsoring the channel on Patreon can enjoy all that exclusive content. So I want to thank everybody for doing that and helping us get to 100 episodes here.
It's great stuff. I went back and you'll see at the end of it, the appendix for our list, for our numbers-oriented viewers. I've actually laid out in chronological order all 99 preceding episodes. There weren't quite in chronological order.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I can adjust that.
No, well, you have the template, and we'll get into that in some depth. But this really is an important milestone. I think you were telling me that Curb Your Enthusiasm, which I think is a fantastic show. Obviously, that's a show
pretty good.
It's pretty okay. Yeah, they have some talented people in that.
But that's a show you were going to say that.
Well, that's a show like Seinfeld that supposedly was about nothing.
Right.
You know, where the promoters of that show are billionaires, and here's a show about something, and we see how life works. You do something about something, you don't get to be a billionaire off of it. But you were telling me, I think that Curb Your Enthusiasm has only 93 episodes.
Oh, did I tell you that? I probably noticed that, and as a tip of the hat to Mr. Michaels, I would point out that there were 93.
But that's interesting. So we're already at 100,
yeah.
And I think Curb Your Enthusiasm, from memory, is a half-hour show.
Uh-huh.
Right? And
yeah.
We're averaging...
Mostly improv, by the way.
Well, that's what this is, right? Again, we need an agent.
That's right. I would argue that Curb Your Enthusiasm is a show about kvetching.
Yeah, that's true. But certainly Seinfeld was a show about nothing, supposedly.
It was even pitched as a show about nothing.
Yeah. But
so, without further ado, Charles, why don't we dive into the Centennial slide presentation?
Sure. So we obviously are joking. I wouldn't use BKD to go buy myself a bagel with cream cheese. I couldn't get that right, probably. Let alone actually to do any kind of financial work. I mean, I've used and reviewed auditing statements of many, many firms around the world, and this group really deserves to go out of business. I mean, to be involved with this fraud from its inception, to put their mark, their name on the audits, the supposed audits of the Clinton Foundation, where they themselves were not validly registered in the state of Arkansas.
Wow.
And then for the trustees, including Terry McAuliffe, who's supposedly this business wizard.
He's a trustee of BKD.
No, he's a trustee of the Clinton Foundation.
Oh, the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah, and for one of the most important decisions that the trustees can make of any serious foundation is who should check the accounting work and who should check the tax work. And the state of the art, if you're a foundation, yeah, right. They do use red. I mean, it's a dead giveaway. You never use an accounting firm that has red in its name.
Well, you didn't even see the first. This is a scroll of graphics. I mean, this looks like nonsense. First of all, there you go. It's like everyone needs a trusted advisor. Who's yours?
Now, we couldn't riff on this, could we?
Oh man,
I think we could.
I
think we could have a lot of fun with it.
What's with the glasses the two of them are wearing?
Look, the red hats. My great-grandfather, Ortel, whose name actually was unusual, was Will Julius Ortel. He had a choice between, he was really good with his hands, and he thought he might be in the wood business. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, he decided to become an accountant and an investor, and ended up being president of this company on the West Coast that had printing and publishing and office supplies and all this kind of stuff. And he went through the Depression, and his business actually made money.
Wow.
With the comment being that, even in bad times, people need to buy red ink too to show the losses. And similarly, that's why you would never, a serious accounting firm would not have red in its name. I wouldn't think. But anyway, we'll never be using BKD. I think they deserve. If Arthur Andersen actually in the end didn't deserve to go out of business, BKD does.
Right. and not only go out of business, probably some sort of criminal prosecution might be in order, perhaps.
Well, especially because this isn't a case, you know, you forgive an accounting firm for one mistake. I mean, very often, you know, very extremely smart people come across as coming up with good ideas, and maybe they're not so good, but you get enamored of them, like Bernie Madoff, for example.
Yeah.
But in the case of this Clinton Foundation, BKD put its corporate name on books and records for year after year after year after bad audit, after stupid audit, ridiculous audit, you know, and right until around 2012, they were still being used by these crazy people in the Clinton Foundation, these trustees. And you generally have, in a corporation, you have the business judgment rule as protection. And I'm not practicing law, but I've been told you have the business judgment rule that, you know, business matters are complicated. You did your work, and the best of your knowledge, you reviewed on the one hand, the other hand, options here and there, and you decided to use this accounting firm.
Right.
Well, in the case of a charity, you don't have that luxury. Your duty in a charity is to the charity. There's no business motive involved. There's no profit motive involved. So one of the most important things you can do, in particular for this supposed public charity, it's not a private foundation, it stands in the shoes of government, is you would hire a firm that could stand up to the Clintons and say, no, Bill, you can't set up a massage parlor and catering service and escort service on the top of, you know, this building in the middle of a park in Little Rock, you know, while you're off, when you're not chasing interns around the world fighting climate change and HIV/AIDS. I mean, you're not allowed to do that. This is a public charity. It's supposed to be a library and research center only in Little Rock. They should have had, you know, the accounting firm should have said, you know, like, before I sign my name to this engagement letter, why don't I check and make sure this thing is actually a charity?
What about a strip club and an IMAX theater?
Again, that may be a money-losing proposition, but it definitely wouldn't be a charity.
Well,
so,
it's a good way to stock up on singles.
Exactly. Yeah, I think out there it'd probably be pennies, but based on what they eat out there, I mean.
Moving along.
But anyway, so we have compiled, and it's interesting, as you and I were doing it, I don't know how many times you went back over the whole list and looked at it, but I didn't. Like, from time to time I would look at them.
Wow, that's the one time I did something that you didn't.
Right. But you know, as we'll soon see, there's a lot of time involved going back over all this. And so we've laid it out for you. We're going to analyze it for you today. We could go to, I think, the next. I gather your subscriber count is almost at 67,000 now, so you're moving up steadily again, which is great. And this really is mostly for the new subscribers and new viewers. We are a different sort of show. We are not a show where you get, you know, somebody who knows nothing about economics and nothing about politics. Think of somebody like...
You get that in me.
No, I'm thinking about somebody to present their analysis of what they do as a congresswoman, like Alexandria, whatever her name is, Ocasio-Cortez. Vote for me, because I know absolutely nothing, and I'll be dumber than my entire constituency. You know? I mean, this is not that kind of show. This is a show where we pick on topics where, in this case of the Clinton Foundation, I've done a lot of work with a lot of people on this for a lot of months and weeks now. A lot of people have cross-checked the work. The work appears to be correct. A lot of government authorities have looked into this and are investigating, we hope soon, indicting, prosecuting, etc. But what we do in the show is we provide, free of charge, a presentation like the one you can get off the internet. Jason has arranged that on this playlist, on each one of the show summaries, where there is a slideshow. And you can check this material. Now, thanks to the suggestion of more than one viewer, we are putting these slides up in advance of the presentation.
I didn't get to do that today, unfortunately, but I'll do it right after.
Right, well, we'll do it afterwards. But we try to do that generally. And when you pull the presentation down, you can go yourself to the links. You can see the hard information. You can check it. And you also have a way to contact Jason and me. And you can, you know, get to us if you think we made a mistake. Think you'd like us to consider doing something slightly differently. We'll entertain your suggestions if they're constructive. We do all this here from New York inside Manhattanistan, which at the moment is still a part of the United States of America, so we do have First Amendment protection. And it's very critical that we have it. We're able to challenge government authorities with different ideas. I think the founders understood that was the best way of advancing the public discourse, to let people express a view that might be at odds with the government's view, might be at odds with the establishment's view, then give the establishment, which is in power, a chance to rebut the view. If we made a mistake, let us know. So far, the number of times that I've gotten, even any kind of criticism on the substance of the analysis of the Clinton Foundation is goose egg. Not one person has come back. Now, maybe I could understand the Clinton Foundation saying, we better not engage this guy because he seems to have a growing audience. We'll just let him natter on and ignore him and let him go away. That, to be fair, is what GE did. But on the other hand,
didn't work out so well.
Didn't work out so well for GE, and ain't going to work out so well for the Clintons either. So this is an important disclaimer that applies to every page of our presentation and our entire shows. We give you our Twitter handles and my website. And there are ways to contact us on Twitter, and there are ways to contact me on my website. I do try to respond to the extent possible to all contacts that are respectful,
and then
which are most of them.
Right, and we did discover, I believe last week, that people want to type charlesortel.com and contact me into Google to get to the contact me page on charlesortel.com, and then you can have that link right there.
There you go.
So that's quite convenient.
That's very good. So without any further ado, perhaps we'll jump, well, here's the playlist, but...
Well, no, I've shown that already. We
all
can
right,
go right to the slides.
So there's been some very major developments overnight in what we've learned, and we're going to talk about this in some depth, is that the Chinese government, among others, likely obtained a copy of every single email of the entire suite of emails that we now believe number 693,000 of the missing emails, not the 63,000 she admitted to. It's always 10 times more.
Those are just the yoga emails.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. I don't want to think about, no, Hillary Clinton, we really don't want to see you in downward facing dog.
They hate yoga in China. The Falun Gong or whatever are persecuted for something.
But I want to weave together something here, which is that the Clintons, we may remember, in the 1996 election in particular, and immediately after it, there's startling allegations made at the time that the Chinese, elements of the Chinese government, had been sending mega money to the Clintons illegally and had corrupted that election in 1996. And there was, belly aching and a hue and cry after those allegations were made. There were extensive investigations. One of the senators made a big deal. He's now passed away, Fred Thompson. But nothing really came when Bill Clinton was president of these charges dating all the way back to 1996. And if we think back to that time frame, 1989, 1990, China was, its economy, there's no charitable way to put this. It was flat on its ass. I mean, it was a very weak economy, big aspirations. The United States and other Western nations were keen to get Communist Chinese government to play in the international market. And I think we now know that globalists were very anxious to, encourage the Chinese to open up their large labor markets and productive facilities. And I believe that many of these multinational corporations viewed that move as an opportunity to lower the cost, to displace American and Western high-cost workers, and to operate in places like Communist China where nobody would really check to make sure that you paid your taxes in China, that you complied with whatever environmental rules
laws and
labor laws are right.
People jumping out the windows as they're manufacturing iPhones, and they put nets there to catch the people and put them right back to work.
Put them right back in the circus. Okay?
Crazy.
You could jump out of a window, you could work in the circus.
Get a whole new job after that.
But the point is that the relationship that the Clintons have had, and for that matter the Bush family has had, in Communist China dates way back. And now we've recently learned, we've told you in the past, that the agreement to broker a peace between the Clinton interests and the Obama interests during the 2008 contentious primary was brokered in Dianne Feinstein's house in Washington, D.C. Now, Dianne Feinstein's husband is a billionaire, so I think their second husband maybe for both of them, second marriage for both of them, but Mr. Blum, Richard Blum, has long been a prolific investor inside China, and we've learned recently that a senior employee in Dianne Feinstein's, I think, California operation turns out to have been a Chinese spy, not for like a week, not for one Chinese banquet, one Chinese New Year, but for maybe like 15, 20 years.
Crazy.
So when we go back and we say, well, there was an agreement between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton negotiated in Dianne Feinstein's house where she likely was still employing this Chinese spy.
Whoa.
So what's the likelihood that, the Chinese government got wise to whatever it was that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama may have agreed that fateful June 2008 evening, a Thursday evening? What was really going on there? And I think that's important because in that exact time frame, public evidence now shows that the Clinton Foundation had literally blown itself up. On March 31st, 2008, the government, state government of Massachusetts had said to the largest piece of the Clinton Foundation, you can't operate in our state. But what did they do? They just kept on operating. So, I mean, that had blown up. And then also, just around that time, Ira Magaziner and Anil Soni, who was the CEO of that organization, walk into the Clinton Foundation, according to this memo by Maura Polly that was in the Wikipedia Podesta leaks. They walk into
WikiLeaks emails or the cables?
The Podesta emails. There's an account by Maura Polly where Ira Magaziner and Anil Soni walked into the trustees of the main Clinton Foundation and said, whoops, with the $23 million we were given for a certain purpose, we used for another purpose, it's gone. In other words, it was certainly diverted, if not stolen. And what's the reaction of the vaunted Clinton Foundation board in 2008? We'll just cover that off. We've got a secret endowment over here we haven't disclosed. We'll just take from that endowment and cover off the problem. So this, June 2008 time frame was a very poignant time frame here. It wasn't clear yet that John McCain was going to lose. It was clear that the Republicans had a lot of money. As typically the Republicans have a monetary advantage in a presidential election. And the things were still, there had been speed bumps in April when GE missed, April 10th or whatever it was, 2008, and caused a big problem in the market temporarily. But we were riding then towards the Olympics, which were being held in China in, I think, July, August time frame, 2008. And the markets were buoyant, prices were high for oil and gas, stock market prices everything was going along well. What were the nature of these talks? What was agreed? I suspect what was agreed at that moment in time was that Hillary Clinton and the Clinton people said, listen, we will help you, Barack Obama, on these conditions. And they include, you're going to leave the Clinton Foundation alone, you're going to let Hillary be Secretary of State, you're going to let us have no Inspector General. We know how to run the White House. We've done it for 8 years. We know the traps. We know how you can get in trouble. We'll help you stay out of trouble. But we have certain prices. And they include that Hillary would be Secretary of State and have this free reign. And why I bring all this up is that the Clintons, we know for certain that from 2009 forward, that the Clintons' security system for their private servers and for the devices was ridiculous. Yeah. There was no security. It was almost as if it's like, we've got the Secret Service protecting this building. How would you get onto the server? That was what Hillary actually said.
It's so ridiculous for people to not realize the gravity of this situation is really beyond me. We've got government business happening on a computer server set up in someone's home that for a lot of the time was running on Mac OS, which I like it for what I do with creative stuff, but I think that most professional network guys would use probably a Linux-based system, I think, because it's got more security stuff in it. The other thing that I find crazy, Charles, is that, we had True Pundit, of course, reporting, I think 6 weeks ago. I was speaking with Michael Moore, of course, who is the now infamous Thomas Paine. I was speaking with Michael Moore last night in Philadelphia, they put out the story that the Hillary Clinton private server was hacked by China 6 weeks ago, and 2 days ago, the same failing pile of garbage that thinks that the dossier that they published about President Trump was worthy of a FISA warrant said that this was fake news. But of course now we see the Inspector General said it. As I recall, during his testimony before Congress, James Comey even said that due to the total lack of security on the server, it was highly likely that multiple foreign actors have, penetrated the server. So how they could say it was fake news is just shows how stupid BuzzFeed is.
Yeah, we'll cover that in some depth in another slide here. But if we can go back to the
yes, sorry,
it's okay.
Here we go.
And no offense to Michael Moore, doesn't he look a bit like? Is it Bob Reiner, the son?
Rob Reiner?
Rob Reiner, yeah. A little, maybe it's just the beard goatee thing and the baseball hat going on, but anyway.
I think he was saying he looks like a frustrated Hemingway.
All right.
But I can't recall
So,
what Hemingway
so the first key takeaway here, the overarching key takeaway, what we're talking about here is treason.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, rigging an election. We're talking about treason. We're talking about a decision that may have been made during the Obama administration, certainly, to forget about this thing, this pesky little, document written hundreds of years ago, the Constitution.
The paper's all dried up.
Who knows? You get the script. Who can read the script? Forget about that stuff. Forget about these oaths. Who cares about oaths? We're globalists. We're just going to, we'll give the internet away. We'll go around the world apologizing for being a nation and not a globalist. We'll give the UN power. Give the, this is bold treason, and to the extent there was foreknowledge, to the extent that the Clintons entered into this bargain with the Obamas by June of 2008, and then attempted to hide the actual effects of this plan to take the United States away from being a nation, but being secondary to some unregulated globalist, unelected elite. That's very serious stuff. And you can't just look at the missing emails alone. You can't just look at these little pieces alone. You've got to see the wider context. The context is these globalists saw having Bill Clinton with all his foibles, let's just say, followed by George W. Bush with his questionable track record. Now you put in this guy Obama, and was he ever really tested? Forget about vetted in his background. Was he ever really tested in a serious way?
Tested for what?
His mettle. I mean, what did he actually ever accomplish other than winning a presidential election, which was really a tour de force in 2008?
They gave him a Nobel Prize.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, I mean, we don't have, you look at a guy like, to pick somebody who's it's not a minority thing, but pick Roger Federer in tennis. Right? I mean, people may not know his background, but the guy, how many world championships has he won now over the course of his very long career? And it's not so easy to win them when you're young, but it gets even harder to win those type of championships when you're older. There was no such track record, equivalent track record in Barack Obama's business or political career. He was let's just say, an undistinguished state senator who then became a U.S. Senator for about 2 years and did very, very little other than set himself up to be president. I mean, that's not somebody who's all that tested. If you look at George W. Bush, not just to pick on Barack Obama, I mean, his career as a businessman was horrible.
Yeah.
Almost every single thing that he touched prior to getting involved with the Texas Rangers didn't work out well. And the Texas Rangers worked out well, not because he was a great manager, but because he had, a good baseball team and a good team of financial backers. That's not somebody that you would say, well, this is one of the best business people in the world, I really want to back him. As far as Clinton is concerned, is Arkansas better off today than it was when he became governor? I don't know. I mean, they managed to redevelop this area around the Clinton massage parlor and catering station by the river, barbecue station or whatever we want to call it, but
finally got an IMAX theater.
How'd you get Bill on the show? Anyway, so
I don't know anything about that.
So the major league takeaways we're talking. This has become, it started as charity fraud, and it is a massive charity fraud. But the real crimes here are treason.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to begin to hear people start talking about more. And it's not simply that we need to go after these people because they stole maybe $100 billion all in, or diverted $100 billion or more. It's because these people were engaged in a conspiracy to subvert the legitimate interests of the United States of America and to shred the Constitution.
Yeah.
And so
Charles,
in that light,
people can start calling you a conspiracy theory. Talk about this conspiracy. When you say we're going to hear people talking about it, do you mean people like you and people like Peter Schweitzer and Sean Hannity, or do you mean people like Devin Nunes, Donald Trump?
Donald Trump, the latter, yeah. I mean, I think we're seeing it already.
Yeah.
I think a crescendo is building here. You're seeing Donald Trump tweeting and talking and interviewing and really, raising the level of the, of the debate to say, look, let's not focus on little technicalities down here alone. Let's focus on the big picture. What was going on?
Charles, may I ask your opinion about something?
Sure.
It seems to me in the past, when issues would come up, whether it was Obama or George W. or H.W. or even Bill Clinton, it's like these issues would be around and it's like the president is over there and he doesn't know anything about it. But with Donald Trump, we were banging on about Imran Awan for a year and change, and then he's like, hey, what's up with this guy? And you're talking about Twitter shadow banning people and issues that are really affecting our rights and our ability to communicate and get this information. And then Trump is on it. He seems unusually responsive for a president to me.
I say, yeah, unlike the past several presidents, I mean, he's not insulated and disconnected. I mean, I think the way the swamp has been happy to work is, I can imagine a conversation that might have gone something like this. And indeed, I know several people who've worked in White Houses, and I remember, now that I think about it, this one comment from somebody who's in the Bush administration who said that in meetings that he went to, and he went to quite a few, in the White House were basically all hypothetical statements, heavily lawyered, lawyers in the room, no one's really admitting to anything or saying anything. Everyone's like walking around on tenterhooks worried about, will they break this or do this wrong or whatever. And I think with Trump, it's more, let's just, what's the problem? What are the most important problems? What are the problems we can fix first? Let's solve those problems, and let's move on to some more problems till we get most of these problems solved.
And then also assign a goofy name to whosever fault it is.
The name, he's a great brand.
That is good.
He's very good at that. I hope he never comes up with a goofy name for either you or me. But anyway, so the second sub-point here is that we do not really know the full degree, full extent to which the Chinese penetrated first into Feinstein and Blum, and then second into the United States of America. We know that in the case of Feinstein, after all, she's just a senator. She's not even at this point, she's a minority, the ranking member, the second highest member on one or more committees of the Senate. Why was she getting such deference from the FBI, when they find this spy who'd been a long-time spy, the spy is allowed basically to kind of leave without getting, brought before the press, and the full extent of his spying is not yet known, and he disappears. Why that treatment for a spy and inside this lady's, office for a long time? Yeah. How many other Chinese spies were inserted into Blum's businesses or other parts of, this thing? We know that Imran Awan was able to get, many family members into many congressional staffs. I mean, what is it with these people? It would seem in California, where they're especially happy in Florida and maybe New York to have these suspect people be entrusted with, vital secrets of the United States of America. What does that tell you about the risk propensity of somebody like a Dianne Feinstein and somebody like the Clintons?
She seems very medicated to me anytime I see her. She doesn't seem like she's too dialed in. And I don't know if you recall, Charles, I think it might have been the end of last year when I went to Congress with that report about Imran Awan. Feinstein's office was one of the offices that I visited, and it's in a close tie for rudest office in Congress that I saw. I would say Debbie Wasserman Schultz's office was more clueless than rude. They were like clueless with a touch of rude. Feinstein's office, the women working there seemed dialed in and sharp, but man, not friendly at all.
Yeah.
So, you know, they say a fish stinks from the head, Charles.
Exactly. And, you know, Dianne Feinstein has managed to do such a good job that the Democratic Party of California chose not to endorse her in the Senate race in November.
That's an extremely stinky head.
So the next thing here is that China and both the government and non-state hackers have, under Bush administration and Obama administration, we've been warned about the fact that China has been very aggressive, has special departments in its military trying to hack.
Yeah.
And it would make sense, I'm sure we have special departments, whether in our military or elsewhere, that are also trying to hack.
I think we know some of those people.
But you see, look here, this is an old story that you know, Google, WikiLeaks is blamed for Google hacking in December of 2010. So this is really interesting. They're out hacking, you know, into Google and else. We don't know how.
Well, but just as a vengeful, like some unfavorable thing about a Chinese government guy was on Google, and so they hacked it.
Right, right. And so when we go to back into the slide, we see that this story that the Daily Mail picked up. If you hit number 4, the link, Daily Mail picked up Richard Pollack's story and made an even bigger story.
Oh yeah,
about it. We'll get to Richard Pollack's story in the next page.
It just makes BuzzFeed look even stupider, which is hard to do. So
yeah.
Congratulations to Richard.
We call it a buzzkill. But you know, this would make abundant sense to me. You know, when you hear, I mean, I remember, you know, I've never even thought of trying to hack anything, but it's the kind of thing that, you know, people who are interested in computers, youngsters, start out trying to hack things. And I'm aware of certain youngsters who were successful in hacking things. We're not going to reveal how I know about it.
I think the Chinese hacked Hillary's closet, because where did this outfit come from? That's the tablecloth.
Exactly.
Again.
Now, we shouldn't go there, Jason.
Sorry.
We shouldn't go there. Nice color coordination, but it also looks like it hasn't been laundered recently.
But if people go down to like Mott Street, I do believe you'll see this on the table at Hop Sing. So that's perfect.
Yeah, underneath the meal. But anyway, so the Chinese were very aggressive and apparently may have gotten all of the email that is now missing.
Yeah.
And we had, this is one thing that Richard didn't bring home. If we hit that next story, the New York Times, I hate giving the Times any...
Well, but the thing that's nice about it is that people who think that you and I are engaged in crazy talk, here's your favorite piece of trash next to BuzzFeed, and they're saying it.
Right. Well, so this is a little different. That, you know, China hacks, secrets are not kept safe, and what happens? 18 to 20 CIA assets are executed.
Yeah. Well, this reminded me, Charles, of Kevin Shipp's revelations, where I don't know if you've seen some of his in-depth presentations, but he actually discovered a cybersecurity breach that was present throughout all the United States computer systems in embassies that Kevin said specifically put the identities of clandestine operatives at risk. And when Kevin brought it to the attention of his superiors at the CIA, he was run out of there. They tried to kill his family, destroy him financially.
It's unacceptable, just unacceptable.
Yeah.
And anyway, so this is why I say Richard's story is great, and maybe he's got more coming here, putting, you know, cause and effect together. But for how long was China? When did China start getting access to Hillary Clinton's emails?
Yes.
And, you know, is it possible that these people who died in part because the Chinese were able to figure out who they were because they got, you know, they got into Hillary's emails?
It's very possible.
So the Inspector General, this is the sixth point here, the Inspector General of the intelligence community, this is the man here, Charles McCullough, who's been on Tucker Carlson's program quite a few times. He came forward on Tucker Carlson and he said, you know what? When I brought my concerns, I was the Inspector General. Now, Inspector General is a toothless tiger. You have no ability to prosecute. You can only refer your findings to the Department of Justice, which of course November 30th, 2017, and now is still under the control of Rat Rodenstein, so and others. But anyway, this is a long story about this honorable man who found the problems. He was an Obama appointee, or operating when Obama was president, and he brings his tale forward to Congress, Republicans and Democrats, and he gets the ship treatment. Yeah. It's like they get mad at him, they pressure him not to come forward.
Right.
And I think the president and his team, we need to get back in and see this Inspector General's report dated July 6th, 2015, into alleged mishandling by Hillary Clinton of lots of classified information. Yeah. We need to understand what was in that report and how that report then managed to trigger an FBI investigation, and who in the FBI may have decided, thanks for your report, Chuck, but
here's a bologna sandwich in yesterday's newspaper. Hit the road.
And some stale milk, right. And we'll handle this now, and we give it over to Comey and McCabe and Strzok, and nothing happens.
Right.
So Donald Trump actually noticed that, and he around the time of this report, he actually came forward and made a big deal about it. If you hit that blue link, here's this story came out around that same time, November 27, 2017, and these are the top people at Fox, top investigative people. Pamela Brown and Sid Upson I've met with many times, and these are detail-oriented people who've been watching this, and we haven't had enough follow-up yet on McCulloch. It's time, I think, Pam and Sid, for a little bit more detail on what was really going on, and why this effort has been stymied to find out exactly how aggressively the intelligence community was meddled with under particularly the Hillary Clinton period and then the Barack Obama period.
This is really one of the most shocking things to me, Charles, that people think, you mentioned Hillary Clinton's email server, and they think that you're blaming the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus. It's like, this is such a serious security issue, and as you're talking about this stuff, I'm feeling like everyone who is maybe feeling frustrated that the swamp hasn't been drained yet and they haven't hashtag locked her up yet. I think this is all important. This is the people of the United States. It's like a big giant ship that we've got to turn to have a public support. Right. What's the word? A critical mass of public support behind this, or it could fail, and then that's the end of it forever. So maybe Donald Trump is doing things in the way they need to be done. Oh, here's our friend.
Oh my God.
Oh, Mr. Clapper.
And we do have to remember that that there are wonderful people in China, and I'm sure there are decent and honorable people in China, but there are also people in hacking and in the military and the Communist Party who certainly do not share American values. I mean, Barack Obama was fond of saying, these are not our values. I mean, at the core of the Communist Party and the Chinese military, those are certainly not American values. And how many of the think tanks and how many of the globalist corporate media, how much of that is supported directly and indirectly by organs of the Chinese state who are funneling money to honorarium, projects, law firms
in the Chinese state,
law firms and the like, and buying real estate that benefit developers who then front the money back into, how much of that has been going on, and how many people, the people who are quickest to defend China today would be at the top of my list of suspects, for those who would have been involved in this treason and corruption. Yeah. And it really does need to be exposed.
And Larry Nichols has been pretty persistently saying that China are the ones to watch.
Yeah, we have been too, you and I.
Yeah.
But if we go just into the 8th point there.
Sorry, yeah,
and we hit that little, this is our, I love this law site, this website.
Yeah, that's
Here's
good.
a whole list of, of offenses, crimes, that, are things that one might want to think about. Treason, rebellion or insurrection, seditious conspiracy, advocating overthrow of the government. I mean, look at all this kind of stuff, and you ask yourself, how much of this is, is this playbook A of the Antifa and the resistance and, all these lunatics running around Washington Square Park and Union Square in the summer? I mean, and how much of this activity is funded by George Soros and supposed charitable foundations and encouraged by faculty lounge lizards and others in what passes for the mainstream media? I mean, this is not a laughing matter here. It's one thing, it used to be that when you were elected, you took seriously giving an oath, and you understood that while you may be a Republican, you may be a Democrat, your paramount interest was preserving and protecting the Constitution. But now we have this, it's not really a loophole, it's not even really wiggle room, it's a delusion that you can say, yeah, that was yesterday. We're all globalists now, this oath thing. I mean, whoever did that? So I would encourage members of the crowd to read each of these and ask yourself, and maybe answer the question, how many of the crimes that are mentioned here are crimes that might actually apply to Bill Clinton and Chelsea Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett and a lot of other people? And remembering that treason is punishable by not having to eat crappy food. It's punishable by the ultimate punishment.
Yeah. It's interesting, this one, misprision of treason, because I believe there was a point in time that I was being misled to believe that I might be guilty of this if I didn't take a certain action, and now taking that action is put me in some other form of civil jeopardy. So it's interesting to see how people who know certain aspects of the law can manipulate them to try to achieve a goal. It's not very dissimilar from what the Clintons do on a regular basis.
Yeah. So the point is that you and the crowd can really help here, raising consciousness of what's been going on here. You can circulate this presentation. Many of you have been doing this at other presentations, and we really appreciate it. So here, this is the actual story, Richard Pollack's actual story, and Richard is somebody I know reasonably well. He and I have collaborated on many, many early stories on the Clinton Foundation. I know the way he works. And he's very cautious. He's won an Emmy Award. He started out, I think, or ended up in television, in the mainstream. He was the, I think, DC bureau head for ABC television, and then I think he was one of the first producers for Fox News Sunday. And he decided, you know what, I'd rather go back to my first love, which is investigative reporting. So his stories are source-based. So he'll get, the source will come to him, and then he'll corroborate the source, and then he reports on it. And so this is a story that reiterates what Louis Gohmert had suggested, your friend, Congressman Gohmert, had suggested, that basically a code was written that basically sent a, quote, courtesy copy for almost all of the emails that went through, all the communications that went through this Clinton mess that is what passes for a server, went to the Chinese government via a Chinese public company. And this to me, when you sit here and you say, that we find out that 100% of the communications of Hillary Clinton went through this system,
it's absurd.
It's like it's not even a close call. You're not allowed to do it. Who was the person who sat down and briefed Hillary Clinton and her team as they went in to take over the Secretary of State's Department and said, here are your obligations under applicable federal laws. Make sure you understand them. Who did that? If nobody did that, why not? And
she already knows everything.
Exactly.
Except what that little C stands for.
Yeah,
what is that?
It comes before D.
It's crazy.
But anyway, so I mean, the whole thing just reeks. It is so far out of bounds, and for the Obama administration not to have immediately leapt on it, for somebody not to have said, you know what, with this crazy private service system, we really ought to have an inspector general. None of that. With all this money missing from various State Department programs around the world, we probably should have a special audit. None of that. Well, there's this foundation going that Bill's running. It's never really been audited. None of that. Leave that alone. And now we discover that all these emails, many of the emails, went to some Chinese company. The questions I have about this include, if we have this vaunted 17 or whatever it is security services in the United States, who failed to notice that the Chinese were getting a copy of all these emails? I mean, I assume we have so many fail-safe and triple fail-safe and redundancy built into the security operation that somebody, somewhere, must have said,
NSA should know.
Somebody
Bill
had
Binney
known
says
about
they
this.
see everything.
well, somebody should have known about this. And it should be possible with all that is now, all the negative publicity around this, it should certainly be the case that our organizations have studied this and are on this, and they've identified by this late date who are the culprits here who allowed this mess to metastasize and infect this country and put this country at grave risk.
Charles, wasn't there an email in WikiLeaks or some incident where Chelsea Clinton was kind of channeling Candace from Phineas and Ferb and like, Mom, Brian's hacking our cell phones.
Exactly.
So if there's cyber breach at all going on in the office, shouldn't, and you're like the Secretary of State or whatever, shouldn't that raise huge alarm bells? And
I mean, you're not in charge of, testing the barbecue sauce in some rural town in
Charles,
Little Rock,
please.
which is important.
Hot sauce.
Hot sauce, that's right. Barbecue hot sauce, whatever. I like hot sauce.
I did forget to address, I'm normally all over this, but my apostrophication of the word Clintons was done prior to adding Slick Willie. So it was just Hillary's 101 fraudulent donations, but of course it should be S apostrophe. I don't want anyone out there to think that type of grammatical error would...
Again, this was blessed by BKD.
Right, exactly.
They changed it. You had it correct, and they changed it.
Right.
So as you mentioned, we don't need to pull up the True Pundit link unless you want to, but Richard did a great treatment based on internal sources from I think the company that got the emails, people close to that company. This is something that came out, 5-6 weeks ago?
Yeah, July 17th.
In True Pundit. And I have to say I'm impressed with True Pundit's work. I mean, you're going to make mistakes from time to time, but certainly they make fewer mistakes than the New York Times, which is
well, and they've got tremendous sources, and everything that anybody has ever doubted about Michael Thomas Paine Moore or sent me things like, don't trust him for this or that, those people have always been wrong, and Michael Moore continues to gain and build my trust with every interaction that we have.
That's good. So he was out there with this shorter story. Richard has the longer story. And knowing Richard, what he likes to do is he likes to put a story like this out, see what the reaction is, and then add to it. And I'm going to bet that we will hear a lot more from Richard Pollack on this story.
Nice.
Now, you had mentioned that the Horowitz report did indeed talk about, raise these contentions. And this is a story, I don't know what American Values is, but there's this story and there's also a Jonathan Turley story to the same point, that there is in the Horowitz report, which is very long, in footnotes there is a mention of, I believe, foreign sources obtaining Hillary's emails.
I mean, it's just so obvious if she has no security on it.
The other point that's very interesting here is that Barack Obama was sending emails, personal emails, on a personal account to Hillary Clinton on her personal account,
right,
and claiming once this whole scandal emerged in March in 2015, I found out about it the same time everybody else learned it through news reports.
Right, I remember him saying that.
Right.
You know, he's such a good actor. That's the crazy part about being lied to, is that there are people who are just real good at it.
We, like to have that, what is it, that dumb talking or whatever, what's that thing where they have...
bad lip reading?
Bad lip reading. What we could consider doing is getting these sound nuggets, from different characters, and then just completely randomly putting them in their voices and seeing, what kind of a story came out and was it believable?
That would be anything that Barack Obama says. Not believable.
The first,
Killed
what do you like to do?
Remember
that thing? I'm an avid skeet shooter.
Did Obama say that?
Yeah, I've been skeet shooting a few times. It's okay, but he's no skeet shooter.
You knew Jack Kennedy, and he's no skeet shooter.
But if we hit the
who said that?
Lloyd Benson. But here's Jonathan Turley, who is, I think, highly credible. This is a story that he ran June 15th, 2018. Saying Clinton's use of a personal email system led to the interception of classified information by foreign powers. And we hear, from the drive-bys, from people like Richard Goodstein, who's an amiable dunce who appears on Fox, and that other guy, who's the guy who's always on Fox, Chris, somebody or other. It's people who are just, they just mouth off. But we hear from them that, this stuff about the email, there's no there.
That's just the craziest thing.
Every previous Secretary of State used personal email, all these ridiculous arguments. And even Hillary, when this came out, she thought she was going to be funny. But my emails was a tweet she made.
That's so, they should tattoo that to her, like iron it on her prison outfit.
Well, you could do, I think someone in this room is pretty good at photoshopping. So
yeah, prison tats for Hillary that say, but my email.
Yeah, or just give her a face tattoo. Those are increasingly more accepted these days.
Mike Tyson's tattoo artist might sue. He won.
Yeah, did he? So, this story we talked about last week, let's put it back up here. This is really, to me, one of the most important stories. Richard's is great, it's fantastic. This story has 23,000 Facebook shares. And here's Comey lying, well, that's what he does, that's how he rolls. The FBI failed to examine, it was actually 693,000 emails found on the Aberdeen laptop computer, dating back to 2006, and Dopey James Comey and his team examined 3,700 and concluded there was nothing really to worry about. This to me, 3,077 rather, the 694,000 emails.
Is that 0.5%?
Yeah, about less than 0.5%.
Crazy.
And this is a gross miscarriage of justice, frankly, what Comey did. And then it's journalistic malpractice to imagine if, Donald Trump was in charge, of reviewing 694,000 suspicious emails, and he put his crack team on it and said, I'll review 3,077, because this is a lot like taking polls of who's going to vote in an election. We always get those wrong, so we'll do this the same way. I mean, this is absurd. They should be looking at every single one of these emails. We have enough people, take, 1,000 people in the FBI, and make them look at 694 emails each.
Well, I think there's a process where these would be scanned for certain keywords
I don't
or
want
addresses.
that. No, I read every single one of the Podesta WikiLeaks emails, and I did it as they were coming out. No scanning, no selecting, every single one, day by day. And I'm just one person. There are people who are much smarter than I am, who much more experienced than I am.
Not many.
There are, certainly with technology, who could look at the 694,000 emails, and it's not going to be the one you scan for. It's not like, let's think, I'll put fraud in this email, and maybe they're not going to.
Oh, damn! That triggered it.
Right.
I was thinking something along the lines of, where's it going to, IP addresses and stuff, and just create hey, these 100,000 are the most suspicious, and get those to the highest quality. Whatever it is, you can't look at 3,000 of 694 and say, there's nothing there. That's basically like reading this word and saying, oh, that was a good article.
Well, we've decided that we don't want to have anything happen other than electing Hillary Clinton, so let's basically do nothing. And then Comey gets up there and brags, apparently, when he announced that they completed the search of these vast trove of emails, and through advances in our FBI technology, we were able to conclude that there were a lot of redundancies here, and the power of our algorithms, we were able to do this in just 5 days, a week.
The power of not looking at it.
That's right. It's amazing.
It's great. Yeah, it's pretty good. Well done there, James Comey. Charles, what do you think about people speculating that James Comey going to Iowa means that he's going to run for president?
When did he go to Iowa?
I don't know. He's always tweeting dumb stuff. If James Comey had a brain, he would stay off of Twitter.
Yeah, I don't think James Comey.
What's he gaining by tweeting anything?
He could be a professor. I guess he taught at William and Mary. He could go out and teach with Robert Reich at Berkeley or something like that. But he's not going to be elected to any national office anytime soon.
How to cover up crimes.
Right. He's good at that.
101.
So we have recently. We talk about China, but let's mention that the Iranians, are stepping it up against us. Here's a story from today's Washington Free Beacon, and there's a suspicion that there's a massive infestation of Iranian spies. Now, why would that shock us? It wouldn't. There are many wonderful Iranian people. I did have a very pleasant experience on Monday, and thank you to the people on Press TV. in Tehran, actually, of debating another American about what America's policy should be towards Tehran at the moment. And there are highly educated people inside and outside Iran. There's a lot to admire about the people of Iran. But when it comes to the government, there is little to admire of the government of Iran since 1979 forward. They've just destroyed the economy and hurt their people and awfully repressive, not a model for the rest of the world. And it's not like there's a minor league disagreement between the United States and Iran. There's deep-seated animosity, particularly of the Iranians against the U.S., going back decades. Yeah. And we should be very concerned about Iranian spies and Chinese spies and North Korean spies and other spies, but particularly so given that we know that the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, was such a dunderhead, followed by an even less careful man, John Kerry. Think of the damage that a bunch of determined spies could do looking through our secrets over the course of 8 years or longer.
We haven't heard too much about John Kerry's tenure as Secretary of State. You think he did more bad stuff than Hillary?
No, because he did not have a foundation. He was already married to a very wealthy woman.
And he wasn't in there that long, was he?
He was in there about the same time as she was.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Huh. Wonder what he was doing.
So I've been on Sputnik Radio before, and what you might do is hit the second link here. This is our friend Katya Blanova, who regularly interviews me and Jan and other people. And she did a story about my interview that is up there with a transcript.
No, I don't want that.
And so, actually what I said this morning, I won't say where I was, but I was in a New York City location, undisclosed location, not underground, just basically reacting to questions on Sputnik Radio. And the researchers at Sputnik are very good.
Lee Stranahan is at Sputnik.
Lee Stranahan's good, yeah. And they listen, they put stories like this together, and then they'll also, what they do with me, what Katya does and some others do, is they'll contact me with a list of questions, and then I'll give my answers, and then they write a story where they weave in additional facts.
Yeah, that's good.
This was done, all today before we went on air.
Wonderful.
And the other link is just a link to the actual radio show. So I did this story, and we haven't done the shameless self-promotion stuff in a while, but I did this story for a rising publication called The Boston Broadside, June 15th, 2018, the same date as Jonathan Turley's story, where I said the elites have been selling globalist corruption as progress. And I would argue they've been doing this since about 1988, maybe before then, that they know best. The faculty lounge lizards at Yale and Harvard and elsewhere, and Columbia and NYU for that matter, they've all decided that this globalist scheme is a great scheme, and it is for them. Yeah. They get to fly around, they have more donors, they have more people applying for the same number of spaces, so their tenure positions are more secure.
Buildings
and you name it, and it's projects that are much more fun because it's you're not just doing a project in Toledo, Ohio. Suddenly you're flying around Africa or Asia, examining this impact or that impact from a globalist perspective.
You know something strange, Charles? When I worked on my first 3D movie, it got into this 3D film festival. You're right there at the cutting edge, and that was in Singapore. So I got the opportunity to go to Singapore, and a professor of mine from NYU, who was the chairman of the film department, was heading up NYU in Singapore. And I mean, it was a way more impressive facility than what they have here at 721 Broadway. Totally all new, advanced, high-tech stuff. And then just a few short years later, he wasn't there anymore. NYU had abandoned the thing and somebody else took it over.
Really?
It just seems so weird to me.
Wonder why they abandoned it. Oh, I think it's possible because Singapore has takes kind of a dim view of freedom of the press and things like that. There might have been some kind of policy debate with NYU. I remember reading about that.
They were like, nice university, we'll take it.
Yeah, but I think also when Cheryl Mills was working and Chelsea was working in the NYU international education operation, Cheryl Mills put together a campus, I think, in Abu Dhabi.
Yes, that's right. There is an NYU in Abu Dhabi.
You know, what could possibly go wrong with that? Now, here's an area you're going to, I mean, I'll criticize Trump from time to time, but here's an area where it might surprise you. He said that if the Republicans lose in November, there's going to be violence after that.
Ooh, why did he say that?
And he's being attacked, you know, fascist, this and that. And I would differ with him here, and I'd say I think there's likely to be violence whatever happens. There's likely to be violence before, and there's likely to be violence afterwards.
Zero Hedge is not loading for some reason, Charles. There's violence always, so I don't, it's just sort of a vague statement, but I would hope that as president, Mr. Trump would recognize that saying something like that might go over like a proverbial lead balloon. I don't think this page is going to load, Charles.
That's all right. Well, we could just go move on then. You don't need to dwell on this.
White page.
So, why don't we go to the next page?
Yeah.
All right. Now this is going to, we'll take a few minutes on this. What I've done here, and in the appendix behind it, you have the supporting information for this. I've divided it into, you know, just for some reason, I just 99 divided up best into 5 things of 17 and 1 of 14. So I took the time period. We started, our first show was July 2nd, 2017. And then I took our 17 shows later, it gets you to the 29th September. The average length, the total length in minutes approximately was 775 minutes. Average length 46. Total views 189,000.
Now, average. How could the average length be 46 if almost every single one of them is over 2 hours?
Because in the beginning they weren't. So that's why I did it this way, to show you that. So we started out doing them rather short. In fact, in the beginning, we did quite a few little ditties. Remember, we went to the Barnes & Noble and down here and there. These are the shorter ones. Okay? But still, in this infancy, we were getting 11,000 on average, which is, that's not, from what I can tell, there's a relationship between the length of a podcast and its viewership. And so if you're down, not actually with us there isn't, there's an inverse relationship. The longer the better.
Changing it, yeah.
But typically, you know, on cable television, I just did an interview yesterday that was cut down, or 2 days ago, that was cut down to 3 minutes. And that's the length of a typical business or politics.
You can't even get the mouse running on the wheel in 3 minutes, Charles.
Well, for this thing, you need more than that. You need more. But anyway, so this shows right away, thanks, I mean, you had been building your network up, and so we were getting good viewership. Then in the next 17 shows, the length, average length went up to 1 hour and 21 minutes.
Oh, I see.
And the viewership was 12,006. And then in the third little leg here, we started going up to 2 hours and 9 minutes.
Tranches, if you will.
Yeah, and it's 21.7 on average. And right after 18 February 2018 was when you started getting the strikes. And so the momentum changed. So
well, that was their purpose, of course.
They saw this momentum, right? We're again at 2 hours and 9 minutes average, but suddenly we're getting 20,000 views. Then in this real period where you're off the air,
right,
it dropped down to 13,000. And in the most recent 14 shows, we're back, you know, we're well above 2 hours now in the most recent period. We're 2 hours and 18 minutes on average, and we're 15,000. But this is still respectable. And remember what I've said to you in the crowd. Thanks so much for watching. Our objective is to get the staff of the attorneys general, the U.S. government, the several states, the many states that could be interested, and the 101 damn nations around the world that should be doing something about this, including our own. So we're not trying to get 100,000 views in this series necessarily, but we're very gratified that we have indeed gotten, I think in the most we got was like 61,000, and the least was like 3,000. So
the episode with Dr. Corsi, I think, got a lot of views.
Right. So it's interesting. These averages are very interesting. So we're getting, on balance, considering the recent period, it's 2 hours and 8 minutes. 3 December 17, 65 videos. These are really, you know, the more intensive Sunday with Charles shows and closing in shows with the slide presentations. So the average length of a slide presentation, I would guess, is like 10 to 12 slides. So there are, take the 65 times 10, there's 650 pages of slides out there already.
Wow.
And here Twitter is shadow banning me and shadow banning you because our quality is suspect. I challenge Twitter to actually show any sort of comparative analysis that would justify saying our quality should be banned, whereas the New York Times and CNN and PBS and MSNBC should be allowed free flow of information.
Oh, I got other
across
names
Twitter.
to add to that.
Right. I challenge Twitter, and we will be doing. We won't say exactly what. We will be doing more than just challenging Twitter. So on average, 2+ hours, 15,000 viewers. Typically, within the first 24 hours, we get about 10,000 views, which is great, and thank you for that. Any help people want to give, tweet this before. Thank you for doing this. Can you suggest some shows? So today we're going to point out some shows in a little bit more detail. Our target audience, as I say here, is really the government investigators and prosecutors. If we wanted to do this differently, we would cut these things down to 3 minutes, 6 minutes, and we could get a vast audience. I suspect what will happen here once we get through Labor Day, once the indictments start coming, once the maybe even plea agreements start coming, that's when people are going to go back over this long list of shows and say, "Holy crap! How do we miss all this?" They're going to be forced to go back in.
James Comey will say that.
James Comey will be
sitting there watching.
He'll be saying, "Do I have to wear one of these pantsuits, orange and black pantsuits, that's built for somebody 4 feet tall?" What
we should do is we should try to reach out to some of the federal prisons and offer Sunday with Charles for the entertainment in the recreation room, because they're going to need it.
And so when we look at this growth, all told we have, and this is as of yesterday. Every day we build a little bit. But as of yesterday, we had more than 1.5 million views.
Wow. Wow. For just Sunday with Charles and closing in.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And 1.1 million since the 3rd of December, 2017. So that's respectable.
It's really something to think about, Charles. I mean, 1.1 million, if you were to do a speaking tour of traveling around to hotel ballrooms and stuff like that, or anything, I mean, how would you get that level of reach prior to the advent of this type of social media, the type of technology we're using here? We don't need to pay a ton of money to hire a huge staff and rent a big studio.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but that I think is the power of our synergy. Neither of us are spending any money to do this show. We've just come together, and my technology skills with your research and your financial expertise have made this sort of team that has allowed us to do something that even 2 or 3 years ago would have been substantially difficult for anyone to do.
Right, and I think more of this should be done, not just on the Clinton Foundation, but on other topics. I mean, this is harnessing technology, which is getting ever more powerful daily, to do things that couldn't be possible. I mean, our viewership, I think, we have the reports, is all over the world now, and obviously it's skewed at the moment towards U.S. and English-speaking countries. But some of our most dedicated viewers are from countries spread far-flung regions of the world.
And BTW, this is exactly what Eric Braverman looked right at me and said people should do. Use technology and social media to spread the word.
That's what we're doing.
Pretty interesting.
So I really hope, and I've done this myself, I mean the writing part of it, from the standpoint of I want to be able to look back when I actually produce the book plural, books that I'm working on, and be able to go back and say, on the 3rd of December 2017, we said X, Y, and Z, and it took fake yapper 16 months later to realize the obvious truth.
Yeah, I mean, you really definitely, I hope, have to call the book What Actually Happened.
No,
Why not? That's the perfect title.
Maybe a different thing. But if we could just finish. Sorry. So it's important to remember here, when we started on this, we called it the Clinton Foundation fraud. It's become, because Barack Obama's people wouldn't listen, and because the Bushes were involved before the Clintons, it has become the Clinton-Obama-Bush charity frauds. And I think at the heart of that has been decisions taken by the people around the various presidents not to preserve all of the presidential records of each presidency. Somebody made that decision. Maybe it was first, I don't know if it was Reagan first?
Nah.
Or you think it happened? Well,
I just think Reagan, the only decisions he made were like,
I disagree with Reagan, but I think in the Reagan period there were little to no email. There may have been the predecessor to
Oh,
email.
probably not much at all.
So the
And
ability...
certainly the president himself wouldn't be doing it, maybe some executive assistant or something.
So email really flourished, in quotes, under Clinton. That was the first president to have, you know, a website and all that kind of stuff. And I think in the Clinton, then W. Bush, and now Obama, and I hope not in the Trump period, decisions were taken that, you know, we'll just say that presidential records don't include your personal emails, when the statute, the Presidential Records Act of 1978, makes clear that it includes electronic communications.
Oh.
Well before there was email. So, wow. I mean, you look at that, and all of these things should have been presidential records. How many of them are missing? How many incriminating emails have gone away? We need to recover that property. It's the property of we the people.
Two quick things. I do believe that Mr. Obama was the first president to tweet, and also, why would it not be the Bush, Clinton, Obama charities, so that way it could be both alphabetical and chronological? Oh, because you're talking about Bush W, not HW?
Well, I was just trying to put, you know, the most guilty, the second most guilty, and the third most guilty.
Oh boy, that's another thing we would have to really evaluate. Okay, I appreciate that for sure.
So if we go to the next page. So this, what we're going to do here, this is just to give you a sense of individual ones that I selected, not because they were the most popular, but in some cases because they haven't been seen enough, right? And so we begin with this one, 225 Water Street, and I don't know, Jason, if you can hit it while we're talking about it. This is you and Trish.
Yep.
I think just go, this is the world headquarters of the biggest piece of the Clinton Foundation.
You can see the barbecue there.
Yeah, I mean, this is preposterous. That, you know, that this is when Unitaid, this gigantic donor that sent $600+ million towards the Clinton Foundation, they routed the money this little sleepy street in Quincy, Massachusetts, to this, you know, derelict dump. What set of governments would look at this and say, yeah, I'll give this house $650 million between sometime in 2007 and you know, sometime around I think it was 2016. It just doesn't make any sense. And a lot of the time that money was sent to this dump, the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative, which was the supposed legal entity, A, didn't exist from January 1st, 2006, but B, was not allowed to operate inside Massachusetts, any part of Massachusetts, Quincy or whatever. And B, Ira Magaziner was running his own personal for-profit consulting firm from this dump, and they were operating another charity, Cradles to Crayons, another suspect charity, from this dump. Yeah, it's take your used baby and kids' toys, generally littered with, you know, with germs, and put it in a little dumpster or whatever, like a collection box, and that charity will make sure it gets to needy kids.
Yeah, but anytime they do the Christmas charities like Toys for Tots, they always tell you new toys.
Right, but that's not what this was.
Reason,
I know, that's not what this was. This was not.
You know, it's funny, Charles, this place looks way more like somewhere that you would bring like potato salad and ambrosia for a block party, not so much millions of dollars for a charity.
No, it's crazy land. I mean, it's just crazy land.
That's good that you put that up so people can remember that neighborhood.
Yeah, and so this second one, this is the first time we laid out, and if you could hit that one, where we took the business model and we tried to explain it, focusing on the Hunter Development Foundation in Malawi.
Oh, yes.
And this is where you had fun with Google Earth.
Yeah, this was getting more into our regular format, I think, at this point. This is one of the early shows.
Right, but you know, this basic concept of the Clinton Hunter Development Initiative, you know, it's classic stuff. There is a Hunter Foundation in remote Scotland, you know, but there's no evidence that foundation may have contributed. You know, Hunter pledged $100 million, I think, or pounds even, towards this Clinton initiative, and there's no evidence whatsoever that anything near that amount of money actually went into the Clinton Foundation for the Clinton Hunter Development Initiative. And that's what, it sounds great. You know, you have on the board of the Hunter Foundation, you've got Sir Tom Hunter. How did he get his knighthood? He pledged he'd give a lot of money to the Clinton Foundation when he didn't have any money
Really?
to speak of at that point. Before that, he had created a sneaker business in Scotland and sold that for, in theory, a lot of money. The whole story doesn't really ring true to me. And on the board of that Hunter Foundation in Scotland is none other than Maggie Haberman's father-in-law, Vartan Gregorian, who's a very famous man. And here's Maggie Haberman relentlessly pounding the Trump Foundation and Donald Trump, and not disclosing that she has this relationship through her father-in-law to a portion of the Clinton Foundation, which I think is a deeply suspicious portion of the Clinton Foundation.
That's interesting. I wonder if people are directly aware. I mean, most people probably don't know that at all. Maggie Haberman, very interesting.
And then is 17th September 2017, that was when we began, I was getting, I think, impatient with the president for like, where's the beef, dude? I mean, you've been in office for like 8 months, you know, can we please have, is that Stuart, I guess? Stuart
Dean joined us for that one. Yeah, that was a good episode.
And we started talking. Stuart's an excellent lawyer who has retired, I think, from being a lawyer. And he's done a lot of work looking at the legal paperwork. This was one of the first shows we had with Stuart. He's done other ones since then. And he's really taken us through the fine points. But the thrust of this show was like, dude, I mean, you know,
where's my car?
Where's our prosecution? You know, I mean, what's going on?
Dude, where's my prosecution? It's another episode.
Yeah. So we began to put the heat on him a little bit.
Yeah, that was when we just got the book.
Yeah, we had just gotten the book, fresh off that.
Great.
And now this, I mean, it's one of my great sadnesses that this "Oh no, Mrs. Bill" thing
never really caught fire.
It's got to catch fire. I mean, they must be suppressing this. I mean, you know, this is just
wow. It's not even 6,000 views. That's crazy.
But it has almost 10% upvotes, only 8 negative votes.
Well, I think it was held back a bit because when I was creating it, the day it was ready was when the Las Vegas shooting happened. So we held it back a few days, but I think October 3rd was when we brought it out, and I think that people were just not in a comedy mood and not necessarily looking for anything that wasn't Vegas. But this is definitely your animation debut, Charles.
It is.
You are quite amenable to chroma keying, I have to say.
And this was just fantastic. But the music, we're not hearing the music, but the music was fantastic.
I enjoyed this because it combined a number of different techniques with traditional clay animation and blue screen compositing, slow motion photography, a lot of different things that were fun to combine and try and educate people about the problems of keeping an email server in the commode.
And then you followed that up for 5 days later with this next thing where we had to take off on Star Wars. This was really fantastic.
Ortel Juan Kenobi.
but this is where we really, Bill had written this book called Giving.
Yeah.
And in essence, the Clinton Foundation is the opposite of what they profess to be. It's really all about taking. Yeah. Taking from frankly, the poor. And here, this thing only got 8,000 views. It still has only gotten 8,000 views. So I tried to pick things that, I would encourage the crowd to go back and watch. Because this is one that, in my judgment, should get a lot more than simply 8,000 views, which 8,000 is fine, but you had done some excellent work on this, and we take people through why this Clinton Foundation is really all about making the Clintons rich and advancing their political fortunes. In Walking Tall, that's when we urged, I love this view of Donald Trump.
Well, this one was also nominated by a Crowdsource community member for a Peabody
something. Didn't get anywhere with that, but thank you for doing that.
Still the thought that counts, right?
And this is when we started getting, more and more views, 16,000 views. But this is really where we began to try to push the president to get more aggressive. Now, I understand why you couldn't just walk in and directly instruct your Department of Justice to investigate the Clinton Foundation, because there's a transition. You got to fill your cabinet. You got to find your feet. You got to deliver for the voters. There was a lot of, resistance and unhappiness with Donald Trump. So I can understand why you'd wait, but that's when we began to start asking, the president to pick it up. And then here, this is a lengthy one. This got 38,000 views, which is quite a few views given its length. This is 2 hours and 46 minutes. And this is where we started taking in great depth people through some of the evidence why this Clinton Foundation is a complete fraud.
That's good performance, 38,000 views.
Yeah.
And the other thing that would be worth noting, Charles, is the number of views, the number of upvotes, and the number of downvotes, because we did later on identify, what's that?
And also this, which I can't get on, can the viewers see this?
Yes, this is from something called TubeBuddy.
So anybody can do this, or just you?
I think if you just download TubeBuddy.
All right, so this shows average people watching 36 minutes, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at some of the very big channels, they don't get long views. They get, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 16 minutes. 36 minutes is a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's 22% watched all the way through.
I don't know. We'd have to...
And you see 216 comments?
What percentage of the video the average viewer watches?
Only a fifth. Okay. But then there's another one we have of people who watch everything, and I don't know where that is. Anyway.
Yeah, this gives you some more information there, but definitely interesting. I mean, the analytics aspect, I think, is certainly more up your alley.
It's TubeBuddy, you say?
TubeBuddy, yes.
.com?
I'm not sure. If you just Google TubeBuddy, I think you'll find that, and perhaps a friend to go river rafting with you.
And then the Russians are coming. I think we had a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, that was a good graphic, right?
Again, this started to be 22,000 views, 37 minutes duration, 111 comments. And this one's 2 hours and 43 minutes. Now, I do beg the indulgence of the wider crowd, and I understand it's a lot to ask anybody to watch 2 hours and 40 minutes of anything.
It's true.
But we were doing it not for you, actually. We were doing it for the government prosecutors and investigators, and for them, this 2 hours and whatever minutes of each broadcast is actually going to end up has probably already saved them an enormous amount of time.
Yeah.
Because we provide the links and we provide the analysis in real time, and we're just relentlessly doing it.
I think the lighting has gotten much better also.
It has indeed, but it's fun to watch this.
It's like a little journey down memory lane.
Right.
It's quite good, for sure.
Kind of like the opposite of a roast. But and then this was a great one for us, this Croco Dung Down Under, where we had the great Michael Smith on, and just almost immediately as we did this show, the FBI admitted they'd reopened their investigation. The Downer story broke around the same time.
That's right.
Thank you, mate, Michael Smith. I know he's very busy with different things he's doing.
You were the first person to talk about Downer that I heard about.
Downer, I talked about, others had talked about him, Michael Smith had talked about him a while back. But again, this is up at 29 minutes average duration, 25% watched, 179 comments. I mean, this is, I think, clear signs of engagement. People are beginning to, they're looking at this, they like it more than they dislike it. And I think most important, we're putting this stuff out reliably and regularly, circumstances permitting.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to put this French Connection up because I don't think it's gotten enough attention. This is Fabien Chalandon, our friend. This is when I think we were being
Well, that was
curtailed.
the first episode we did with Fabien, right?
Yeah, but only 7,700 views in February. I mean, this should have gotten a lot more views because this takes you through.
But this was a supplement, so why did I do that? Because I think what we did for this one, I think we interviewed Fabien because the time was really weird, and then we played that back. So there's, I think, another episode that goes with this.
I have it, but this in particular needs to be looked at very carefully. Fabien's work is very thorough.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to encourage people who haven't, had the chance to go back and look at this. This is worth watching again.
He also has a very pleasant manner of presenting and speaking with
nice
calm
art.
authority.
And nice art.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice Japanese
well, we've
art.
seen him now in two very impressive locations. This Japanese, I guess it's not a pagoda, but wherever he might be there in Japan, and then also some sort of French palace or something with a very nice chandelier.
Yeah, he has excellent taste and he knows how to live.
Yeah.
Good man.
Very good stuff.
But his work is outstanding, and the French government through Unitaid is by far and away the largest donor to the Clinton Foundation. So get off your horses, ladies and gentlemen, and get some of that money back. Especially here in Canada. Now here we had 19,400 views. Great. All these graphics are great, but this one, I love cartoons actually. And here we have
wow, it's really going up, the view duration.
39 minutes. 294 comments, and I've had now multiple people from various parts of Canada, various provinces, tell me that their provincial governments are looking at this. They're trying to get the federal government to look at it. I think we'll see what Trump does with Canada here and NAFTA, but I think what Trump is doing is very smart. Having gotten Mexico on board first, Trudeau dissed him. Trudeau, I think, has got he's got issues basically between his own Trudeau Foundation, his lack of economic common sense, and the fact that he's a very young, naive individual. All mean for me that Trump's better strategy might be to say, forget Trudeau, let's work on the next one.
Looks a hell of a lot like Fidel Castro.
Here we have, this is Bilyana, introducing Bilyana, although I think we first had Bilyana on in New Year's Eve. I think we did, or the 24th, Christmas Eve, I forget which.
Oh, well, that's possible. I remember this graphic though.
It's great.
This was a good one of us. What was that like? Oh yeah, Saving Silverman, right?
But again, 36 minutes, 92 comments for a show that's what? How long is this?
3 hours and 18 minutes.
3 hours and 18 minutes. Wow.
I mean, it's like The Godfather Part 4, starring Charles,
and 5, starring Jason.
Yeah.
But the thing that's interesting about this, at the time we did this, Bilyana in particular in Sweden was downtrodden, downcast, and despondent, frankly, that anything would ever change in Sweden. But we have the election coming up September 9th, and it's quite possible that things could change sooner rather than later. That this existing government that's got the people of Sweden under its thumb may get turfed out. Which would be great stuff. This is worth, again, going back over and understanding and watching carefully as this situation changes in Sweden, especially if a new government comes in. The Swedes, directly and through various other means, have sent a lot of money towards these Clinton frauds.
I'm going to work on trying to figure out how to convert these things into audio-only podcasts, so maybe people could listen in their car or something like that.
That's not a bad idea.
I'm just not quite sure exactly how.
Here's these images of Bill Clinton. I mean, are just great. But this is, I think, the most recent one we did with Fabien on Unitaid. And again, he also produces presentations that I think are attached to these various podcasts. And if you want to learn more about the degree to which I think elements in the French government were complicit and may possibly still be complicit in these Clinton Foundation frauds, watch this one very carefully.
Certainly Sarkozy, that was pretty much right after a show that we did with Fabien that Sarkozy was pinched, if you will. Yeah.
I love this graphic, especially.
Yeah, and Dr. Evil there, yeah.
And this is 29,278 views. And I happen to know that, because I was in touch today with some people in the UK, that people are following this very carefully in many different countries. And I think they've had enough time. I wanted to do this on a basis where we weren't blindsiding people.
Too much information, you mean?
Right, so here you have, there's somebody in the UK who's already been successful asking Parliament, and there's supposed to be an inquiry, parliamentary in the UK inquiry into why the UK has given so much money to these frauds. And I'm sure we're going to find out that it's, deep state bingo over there.
Yeah.
This is a great one, and it really deserves more careful viewing. I think we might have put this out. When did this come out? Was this when you were stricken? Yeah, you were on Crowdsource the Truth 2 then.
Oh yes, right.
But nonetheless, it got 11,462 views on that.
Right.
And the importance here is that when you use a post office box to solicit money for a charity illegally, that's serious. Those are serious crimes. And the real question here, we have a post office system that's hemorrhaging money.
It looks like he's going to break her head off.
Yeah, nice arms. Those are somebody else's arms, I think.
Yeah.
But here we have a post office that's hemorrhaging money that nonetheless allowed the Clinton Foundation free or discounted use for years of the ability to send entreaties around through the mails. That needs to be accounted for. Now this one, this is very long, and I think we're also in Crowdsource the Truth 2 territory here.
Yep.
This is when we had, I love this graphic. Boy, oh boy.
There's so many unflattering pictures of Hillary Clinton for me to choose from.
Oh boy. But this is one where we had the privilege of having Doug, was it Doug White? What was it, White? Yeah, Doug White, who is a professor, actually holds certain academic credentials, has organized the master's level degree granting courses at NYU and then at Columbia into philanthropy. And he was kind enough, he's done a lot of work on Wounded Warrior project, and also looked at the Clinton Foundation. So we had him come in and talk about Wounded Warrior and then also talk about the Clinton Foundation. It was a very productive session. But again, this should be 50,000 views, not 9.5. And I think the reason it was down so low is that was when you're in the strike zone.
Yeah, the off channel, and a lot of people were not able to find the material during that dark period.
And again, this is another one that we have, the great Michael Bloomberg, who truly is a gifted philanthropist. But on the other hand, this C40 Charities and this non-existent fake Clinton Climate Initiative that's never been validly organized, regulated, or accounted for, this is all about that, and it's all about the degree to which Michael Bloomberg has, I think, legal exposure for not organizing C40 Large Cities Project appropriately with the Clinton Climate Initiative. So we take people through this. Here we did not use a movie, we used the Dr. Seuss book.
Still good though.
Yeah,
I'm surprised more people haven't ordered T-shirts or mugs of that green regs and scam.
I like this one.
It's a good little cartoon.
But I would watch that if you're a climate. I'm a conservationist, and I believe I am an environmentalist, and I'm just shocked at the way the Clintons have been taking advantage of gullible people. Now here, speaking of gullible people.
Well, I was going to say this is a good one because it's one of the rare where, maybe the first or one of the first where we got to make George W. look stupid, which is frankly easy.
Pretty easy,
yeah.
Well, this will not, I hope, be the last. Now, this is on Crowdsource the Truth 2.
Yeah.
21,000, we got hits. And I remember getting, who was that person? You knew the name of the person who would give me trouble on Twitter? Some woman
don't remember.
Was saying, "I've got my eyes on you. I see you go after the Clintons, but you never go after the Bushes."
I don't remember that person.
Yeah, you knew the name. It was, but the name will come to you. Anyway, somebody who obviously there's just like 200 followers who wanted to, give me a hard time. Obviously, you can, if you're watching the show now, you might want to go back over and take a look at what we talk about in this show about. I think this one was the Haiti fund we were talking about, or Katrina fund, I forget which.
Wasn't it the Clinton, Bush, Haiti, and Katrina fund?
Could have been, both. The sting...
Someone actually just the other day suggested that we do this, and I just emailed this video to them.
But look at this, it's only 3787. This is our lowest.
Wow, why did that happen?
It's lower than Oh No, Mrs. Bill.
That's weird.
And I just, what day did it come? May 14th? I don't understand why it would be so low.
Oh, I do. Because what was happening is the videos were coming out on Crowdsource the Truth 2. See, there were 2 strikes on the Jason Goodman channel, the original Crowdsource the Truth channel, because the goal, of course, was to knock Crowdsource the Truth out completely and take away the following forever. Now, they failed at that, but when the first strike expired, I started re-uploading each asset to the original channel so there would be a continuous timeline, and also to start alerting the viewership that the channel was coming back alive. Strategy being, when live streaming came back a month or so after that, we could get right into it. Because I think here I was in
Oh, that's right. You
New
were somewhere
Zealand or something.
That's right, and I was not in New Zealand.
Right.
But this is one people should go back, and if they have a chance, spend the time watching it. It's a good one.
Thank you. Yes, they're all super good, Charles. It's an impressive body of work. It's unbelievable the amount of research that you've done and put together, and you're very prolific, I have to say.
And here we have, this is a great poster, of course. I love the various beady-eyed monsters who are down in the 13 Angry Dems.
But look, the number's gone up to 17, hasn't it?
Yeah, and this is June 17th, 2018. We've been pounding this before the president's been pounding it.
Maybe he even got the meme from you.
From you.
From us.
But I think it's a lot more. I think the Democrats appear to be the party of angry.
Yes.
That's just angry and miserable.
Stupid.
And on Drudge today, I didn't send it in, but even goats know enough. You see that story about goats know enough to hang around happy people?
I did not.
Pretty good.
See that. Goats are smarter than you might realize,
oh, yeah.
And they're quite delicious.
So you say. But this I think was a tour de force. This when Crooked met really right on our average, bang on our average, 15,000.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you have that Tube Buddy thing? Or
I think when the playlist is there, for some reason it's not showing up. Oh, there it is.
So now this is 39 minutes. You see, 81 comments, 39 minutes.
Yeah, but this is pretty consistent here, that we're getting about 90 to 95% positive response in terms of the likes. And so then we had that one that had 1,100 down votes. That was an obvious outlier that was quite clearly influenced by outside forces of some kind.
And we rounded out with this, really this is aptly named Chump, the Art of the Steal, with a picture of this chump.
And of course it was on his birthday, so that was a special episode for the former president.
Did you get a thank you note from him? I
did not, no. The hat was...
that was a good addition.
Yeah, the hat makes the man, they say, Charles.
So with that, we're almost to the end. We have following this slide, we'll take people quickly, just page them through the detail list of every show. We're not going to pull up any more shows, but anyway, I think we really need to understand, this story came out yesterday, this first one, Flopping Aces.
Someone's asking me on YouTube if these videos are being shared with the authorities, and of course they're open for everyone to view. Definitely would encourage people to email them and tweet them at any person in power who they think could have the ability to affect something.
So this came out yesterday. Meet China's mole in the U.S., Hillary Clinton. The damage she did to the U.S. is monumental. Wow. 73,000 views.
Oh.
In a day.
Flopping Aces? Wait, what is this?
I don't know what it is, but I like the story, so I put it up.
Huh. Seeing a lot of poker people getting into news, wary of people who bluff to earn their money professionally, but I do agree with what this article is saying.
So this is an article that basically picked up on Richard Pollack's piece. It's an article that picked up on Sarah Carter's piece, who picked up on Richard Pollack's piece. And when you start seeing that happen, Sarah Carter's a fantastic journalist, yes, as is Richard. I thought the article made a point. Let's put it up here.
But that's it. Oh, no, wait. So 72 shares, 961 views.
Oh, is that it? That's not 72,000. Well, all right, still, it's
still good
progress.
Yeah. All right.
So if we go to the next one. Yeah, this is a little bit meandering here. This just came out that 3 of the 5 defendants in the New Mexico mess have just been let off.
Why?
There's some technical reason why they got let off, but what was really going on down there? I mean, these were young kids being trained and terrorists being trained to attack.
In New Mexico.
And why this judge that had migrated from California has decided to be so lenient to this team right before September 11th when we have so much to fear. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. That's crazy.
And I do, however, like the Federalist, which has got a lot of good people writing for it. So we just had also today, moments ago, the news that GDP actually grew not at 4.1%, but at 4.2%.
Wow.
So take that.
It's pretty good.
And what people need to understand, I love there was some complete bonehead trying to argue that Barack Obama's economic performance was, as good as Donald Trump's. And what you have to understand when you think about a number like 4.1 or 4.2, what you're really thinking about is this, a long-term trend, right? And not the quarterly result. And what happened was under Reagan and then Clinton, I'm doing it approximately, the trajectory was like this, right? And then under George W, it was like that, a lot worse. And then under Obama, it was, and then it went back up almost to, reaching the George W. Bush level. And now, immediately under Trump, it's on, and so you can't just look at this, say that at some point in Barack Obama's presidency, stock prices went up. Well, they started at a certain level and they went way down. The low was like March 6, 2009. And I'm not blaming the collapse of the market on Barack Obama at all. That's unfair to do that because
George Bush had a lot to do.
Had a lot to do with it, and the swamp in both parties. A lot, I'm not. But what I am saying is, the drop in stock prices and then the simultaneous drop in investment and decision to X out a lot of jobs created. It was a nasty floor, and then once you got off that floor, it was sensible for the thing to grow at a fast level, but it hasn't yet regained the original trajectory. I've done the math before. If you wanted to, follow the Reagan-Clinton timeline, follow that trajectory and say, well, had we stayed on that trajectory, where would GDP be now? And as a guess, it would be like 35 trillion, 40 trillion. It'd be
what is it?
It's only 20.
Whoa.
Wow. I'm just guessing.
So, but what would that mean to the average person?
It would mean a lot higher incomes. It would mean a lot higher stock prices. It would mean a lot more cash, a lot less debt, a lot fewer people on social relief programs. It would mean probably a balanced budget. I mean, a lot of very good things.
Sounds all good.
Yeah, exactly. But instead, W gave us, what he gave us, and then...
So we'd rather just have wars all over the place and kill people and waste money.
Yeah, he ran out without paying the check, and then Obama said, I could do that. Let's take this credit card, and we're going to use this nasty.
Jeez.
So, turning to domestic politics, there's been a certain amount of chatter that this fellow, Andrew Gillum, he's the new Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for having beaten the daughter of a very powerful political family in Florida where, I forget the guy's first name, Graham's first name, but he was a senator and a governor. Here's a guy, apparently he's very charismatic, but he's the mayor of Tallahassee. And Tallahassee is the capital city of Florida. It has the highest murder rate in the state. It is under investigation for corruption by the FBI, the wider city government. There are all kinds of problems in that state. And the simple facts, the numbers that I saw just before, this John Fund is a good guy. The numbers, they're 93.
And 33.
The numbers that I saw for turnout suggested to me that there were about 1.5 million people, Democrats, voted in the Florida gubernatorial primary, and 1.6 million voted in the Republican. So I wouldn't be so quick to say that, this means there's going to be a landslide here for this fellow who only got around a third of the Democratic vote, and he's far to the left. He is a progressive, liberal, embraces it. He thinks Trump should be impeached. He's going to you know, I predict he will have a very hard time getting across the line. Absent stock market crash, terrorist attacks, health problems, some unknown happening to Trump.
Were there any more people running in this primary?
Yeah, there were 5 people running. That's why everyone's so low. But the point is, this was the establishment Democratic candidate. This was the Bernie Sanders candidate. And he was not expected to do this well. So hats off to you for winning, but I think you're going to get shellacked in November.
Huh. Well, that doesn't sound good for him.
Yeah. Now, we'd like to end these presentations talking about the things that really seriously concern us and then a few light notes. But this idea that the technocratic Facebook, Twitter, and Google, for that matter, and others, should be in the business of censoring political views, particularly censoring conservative views and promoting liberal/progressive views, is bunk. That is just, you know, this is not correct. It's not the way things should go. And we're seeing it, I'm seeing it in my personal life, you've been shadow banned, I've been shadow banned by Twitter. And I've seen my Google results constrained down. I used to be, if you Googled me, I used to get like 300,000 hits. But I think because I've been on a lot of foreign TV, RT, and other Russian and Chinese and other things, and I've been in many across the political spectrum websites, but they don't like the fact that I've been in Breitbart or Washington Times or whatever else. They filter me way down. Yeah. And meanwhile, you know, if somebody exclusively writes for MSNBC and CNN and Fortune Magazine and whatever, and the New York Slimes and the Fish Wrapper and the Washington Post or whatever, suddenly you're going to get, you know, a whole bunch of all your stories will be in there, including all the ones that are wrong. So that just has to stop. I mean, there should be no such filters. And certainly, if you're going to team, as Facebook has apparently with the Southern Poverty Law Center, I mean, that's one I've specifically been quoted and called out as a fraud. You know, it is not a charity. It is a partisan political action organization that has a lot of money in the Cayman Islands, of all places. Wow. You know, if you're trying to eliminate poverty in the South.
Yeah, why are you putting all your money in the Cayman Islands?
Yeah, these investment accounts. I mean, that to me that cries out for regulation. And the last thing that Facebook or Twitter or anybody else should be doing is employing that prism to decide which stories, you know, should be getting prominence on algorithms.
I certainly have my biggest beef with Google's way of running YouTube. I mean, there are people who are, you know, deliberately just stirring up trouble, and you think you could kind of mitigate that by blocking them, but, you know, for some reason they're still able to comment. In my view, if someone is blocked from the YouTube channel, if you're logged in under that name, you shouldn't even be able to see the videos. Yeah. But they don't seem to care. And the thing that a lot of people don't seem to get when I'm talking about sponsoring Crowdsource the Truth on patreon.com/Crowdsource the Truth, people are like, oh, well, you just want money and we want this free thing on YouTube. It's actually not free. You are giving away the ability to make your own choice by allowing YouTube to determine who can be and who cannot be, or Twitter to determine who can express their views and who cannot. So even if people aren't interested in the amazing exclusive content on patreon.com/Crowdsource the Truth, it still supports the ability for us to maintain our option of presenting information under our First Amendment rights.
Yeah. So
this one?
Yeah. Now this is a good piece. You know, John McCain has passed away, and they're, you know, naturally.
It's not a very flattering picture.
There are, you know, many who immediately are sympathetic and this and that. But I think as time passes, people are going to be increasingly more and more critical of Senator McCain. Tom Fitton, who I think is a very fair-minded person, has for many years now been trying to get Lois Lerner and other communications that showed John McCain actively participating in his staff targeting Tea Party conservatives. So it was not simply, you know, the left, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and others deciding to do it. It was this man and his staff, I think, in a fit of pique over conservatives who were against McCain-Feingold and other aspects of John McCain's work. So I'm somebody, I've said before, I could not bring myself to vote for John McCain in 2008 over his involvement with the Keating Five, principally, which was a scandal where, he was playing in a way he shouldn't have been playing. So we have heard a lot as well, and I do encourage people to go on Zero Hedge, not because I believe everything I read on Zero Hedge, but it's a good place to start. When they decide to feature something, it's worth your while taking a look and say, hey, what's going on here? But people are saying that Argentina is it's hit the wall quite a few times in the course of its long history.
You know something funny, Charles? When I was coming back from Philadelphia last night after the interview with Michael Moore of True Pundit, the train was stopped because of police activity in Newark. They were investigating, the bomb squad was investigating a suspicious package, which now someone on the internet will probably blame me for. But I had to get off the train, and someone on the train, we shared a taxi back to the city, and he was from Argentina, and he was an accountant. And he told me that there's hyperinflation in Argentina right now, and that it was like 17 pesos to the dollar, and now it's 32 pesos to the dollar.
30 plus.
Yeah, so
you can see it down here on the right.
That's an intense situation for the people of Argentina. We spoke a bit about
33.
What's going on in Venezuela, and how the forced immigration, or the people fleeing Venezuela into Brazil, is creating all kinds of problems. So, if these are financial crises created or exacerbated by globalist billionaires, we're starting to see the effects for sure.
Well, I think, these crises in the main, they're going to hurt local people, but they're going to make the United States dollar investments a lot more attractive, I think, over time. Now, this is in the too sad and not particularly funny, but I mean, what was this lady thinking? Here's a married woman who's the wife of one of the Trump ethics lawyers, screwing a young inmate in the back of her Maserati.
What could go wrong?
It's just, this is obviously a deeply troubled person, but I imagine the conversation between Terry Joe Birchfeld, and if you go further down.
How did she get access to an inmate?
I don't know.
She got him out of jail into the Maserati?
I don't know how you could even make this kind of stuff up.
Wow, that's shocking. Oh, Attorney of the Year.
Yeah, that's her husband.
Oh.
But look at here. It says that the wife was a 2-year analyst for Goldman Sachs. She worked for Congress, and she also worked on the Whitewater investigation.
What?
According to a bio, she's involved with a charity. It's taking care of prisoners charity, I guess. But anyway.
It's the Make-A-Wish Foundation. What was this kid's wish?
Well, what is the charity? Let's wonder what it is.
He's like, I want
to
bang a lawyer in a Maserati.
Magnum, Migraine Awareness Group. Well, maybe now that's a serious problem, actually, people who have migraines. Maybe she has some mental health problems.
Magnum. That's also a brand of prophylactic.
And a TV show that is rebooting in September.
Oh, that's right, Magnum PI.
And then what is going on? Well, that's the one we have there. We've already done
Oh,
that
sorry.
one.
I didn't realize that was about drinking water.
And then we look here. I mean, I'm very much for the idea that shirts should remain on in public.
Oh, why? Someone wanted to, woman?
This is a woman, a tennis player, who took her shirt off. Took it, during a break at the U.S. Open, she took her shirt off. It's not Serena who did this, but somebody else.
But there was something else about a cat suit for Serena.
Oh yeah, Serena wore something you're not allowed to wear in I think Wimbledon.
Huh.
This is her taking her shirt off. It's not all that revealing, actually. But
she's just wearing a sports bra there, no?
Right, but she got penalized, as it were.
Huh. Kind of like that woman in the Maserati.
Exactly.
Sorry.
So with that,
it's the 100th episode, Charles. Where would we be without an immature joke?
But actually, I just want to continue in the slides quickly. So for those of us who like real details, this is every single episode, page by page, with the date, the title, the abbreviated title, the number of minutes, the number of views. And if you keep going through it, I put in green the ones that we'd highlighted. But here, if you see, Slumdog Billionaires was one I thought about. People wanted to look at involving India. That's one I think that's, I nearly put up as one we should keep watching. But next page, I think you get to Jerry Corsi. Here you start seeing we're building a real head of steam. 43,000, 32,000, 20 to 37,000. You know, and then I think Jerry was in the next page. John Solomon, 38,000, and Jerry, 63,000 on March 20th. And then right after that, we started getting hit.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I wonder, why is the Dirty Dozen only 5,000?
I know.
That's weird.
Well, this, I think, was when you were in Crowdsource the True Land.
No, Dr. Corsi, oh, that was all the way back in, because we did another one at Dr. Corsi's house. So how did this get 63,000? It was on Crowdsource the Truth, too? That was because everybody wanted to see Dr. Corsi and you, and that was really a powerhouse combo there. Huh, interesting.
So this gives, so we're head of steam, and then next one.
I wonder if there are ways that, you know, we're not aware of that can be employed to...
I'm sure there are. See, here's the return visit with Dr. Corsi, only 8,000 views. Maybe they'd had enough of them, or I think this is when you were being suppressed.
That can't be. June. Yeah, you're right. It didn't come back on until July. So really, to get the true number here, we would have to combine channels, I think, because it was on like 21st Century 3D, Crowdsource the Truth, and Jason Goodman.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm just doing the one.
Right. Yeah. So it gets confusing. But I mean, again, that was the purpose of the people that initiated these malicious strikes, was to prevent Crowdsource the Truth from growing uncontrollably as it was, and simultaneously spread nonsense stories to muddy the waters, as it were.
But still, I mean, I think it's a respectable group. I mean, I'm delighted we've had the chance to do this many. 100 that's our first 100.
That's right. Oh, is that the last slide? There we go. Well, Charles, it is always an exciting, you know, show to put together, and I'm always shocked by the information that you bring out. I mean, I shouldn't be shocked anymore, but it's crazy, the level of criminality. A lot of people have been commenting that we should have had a cake. And you did say we should have a cake?
Yeah, but we don't like cake.
I like cake.
Do you? Usually, I would have brought cake if you told me you liked cake.
But you said you didn't like cake.
I don't really eat
How can you not like cake? But I can't eat a whole entire cake by myself. If we had a party, we could get a cake. Yeah. Maybe for the 200th episode, we'll get a cake.
Well, actually, this is 100 total episodes, so it's more than just Sunday with Charles and closing in. So when we reach our 100th of just Sunday with Charles and closing in, maybe that's when we'll have a cake.
That's a great idea. And you could have Stormy Daniels pop out of the cake.
No, that would ruin my appetite.
Michael Cohen would pay her. All right, Charles. Well, that was really an excellent presentation. I think people enjoyed that for sure. Oh, but wait, we have some last minute, this just in information that we can share. The Russia hoax.
Yeah, this is Greg Jarrett, who's done a lot of great work, including his book, latest book on the Russia hoax, saying that Mueller may have actually screwed up his ability to question Trump by spending so much time with McGahn, the White House counsel.
Why did that screw up his ability?
Well, because it's not like you have an absolute right to speak to the President of the United States on anything, and you've got the President of the United States is discharging his the highest possible duties of any official in the country. He's busy, he's got stuff he's doing.
Right.
And so if you've already asked a whole bunch of questions and gotten 1.x million documents back, if you've had the courtesy of spending 30 hours with the President's White House counsel, it's tougher to argue that you ought to get the right to speak with the President.
Particularly if it hasn't turned up anything that's indicative of a crime.
Yeah. And this is something I think you knew about, that we've seen in previous stories, that Christopher Steele was apparently working for, was he working for, Deripaska.
Deripaska. Yeah, this guy shows up all over the place.
Yeah. And I have to say that, you know, this Bruce Orr guy, he was the number 4 person in our Justice Department. I got some serious concerns about, you know, number 28 and 30. I mean, you know, this guy rose. There were only 3 people more senior than Bruce Orr. And the lamestream press is describing as just a mid-level person. I mean, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people there are in the Justice Department. This guy got a very high-level job. How? You know, he's married to somebody who's working for dubious
GPS,
and it didn't disclose any of that. I mean, I think at the very top of these departments, Barack Obama's people were quite clever, you know, giving the appearance of there being, you know, neutrality and nonpartisanship, but then just making very sure that the people at the key levels of power in key organizations like the Justice Department, like the IRS, were loyalists of, you know, to those who love cronyism and corruption and unregulated globalism. And that's what I think this Bruce Orr guy is. Certainly Christopher Steele, he was so bad that the crooked FBI decided that he wasn't reliable. And so Orr then turns around and says, I know what I'll do. I'll just repackage everything through my wife.
Yeah.
And he got away with that. Under, by the way, you know, some of that was done while Donald Trump was still president.
Well, under his nose. I guess he didn't know.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
It is outrageous. But a lot of outrageous stuff is going on. This guy, Oleg Deripaska, he's into a lot of stuff. And it seems like, depending on the day of the week, he's, you know, a Putin-linked oligarch. It looks like Putin and he might not be such friends all the time, but who knows how these things go, Charles. I think these oligarchs are a finicky bunch, but I don't, you know, I can't say for sure.
So hats off again to the art department. I think, I don't know how much progress is on this screensaver idea, but maybe someday we'll get to that.
I meant to do that for today. You know what? We're going to be starting September very soon, and of course we've got the new show coming on that's going to be Light on Conspiracies with Ole Damigard, that people who sponsor Crowdsource the Truth on patreon.com/Crowdsource the Truth will be able to get. Maybe I can figure out a way to make a screensaver and have that downloaded item be some sort of a thank you gift for sponsors or something like that.
I'm sure it'll happen when it happens.
Yeah.
But this is a great piece of art, and thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, the hair took quite a while.
Yeah.
Now, of course, tomorrow, Charles, I'll be back on with Kevin Shipp, the intelligence assessment with Kevin Shipp, and we're going to have a special guest. We're going to have Tiffany Fitzhenry, who, of course, is a Hollywood screenwriter and a mom and a wonderful speaker and an advocate for First Amendment rights and women's rights and all kinds of the great things. So Tiffany will join us to discuss the CIA and Hollywood and how those two entities have interacted in a kind of a sinister way over the past many decades. But thank you for this wonderful presentation. I will go upload that so that when people return to the description, they'll be able to download your PDF presentation as always. And I want to thank everybody for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.